going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Underdog Podcast. Today we have our AFC North Draft Grades. Really interesting division. We had probably one of the best drafts I have ever seen in this division, along with some other ones that I was kind of scratching my head throughout. But it was a really, really interesting draft. This is going to be one of the most competitive divisions in the NFL next season. So the draft's a big part of that. You have to get guys that can be immediate impacts, but also guys that you can develop for later on, turn into quality starters, to turn into, special teamers, stuff like that. So, especially in this division that's super competitive, the draft starts everything. So let's start with the Baltimore Ravens with their 2 first-round picks in Kyle Hamilton, who was their first-round pick. And I kind of called this one. I said Kyle Hamilton would not be a top 15 pick. He almost made it out of there. He was the 14th pick. But I was correct. He was not the blue-chip prospect we thought he was. He's, I think, more limited than people want to admit. He's very much, I don't want to say one-dimensional because he's not just a box safety, because I think he'll be able to guard tight ends at the next level and be a guy that can come in and blitz off the edge. But he's more of what Jamal Adams is rather than what like Jesse Bates or Derwin James or somebody with that kind of range to play both the strong safety and free safety role. He's not that guy. He's very much going to be in and around the line of scrimmage like Jamal Adams is. He's rarely going to play in that high safety role. I think he's going to be, the replacement for Chuck Clark. He's going to guard tight ends. He's going to be, a box linebacker at times, probably play there, in the nickel, potentially a dime linebacker. And he's going to be matched up mostly against tight ends and running backs. I don't think he's going to be matched up against slot receivers or anything like that, because I just don't think he has the speed to do that. Now, granted, Kyle Hamilton was able to make these incredible plays due to his instincts, and he does have very good football IQ. He has very good awareness, but there is kind of that double-edged sword with Kyle Hamilton, is because with guys have great instincts and then they are wrong, it kind of bites them in the butt. And you saw that a couple times at Notre Dame where he would come up and try and make a play, and they would just throw it right over the top of him, or he would take a bad angle in the run game, thinking he's faster than he is, and he misses the tackle, and they gave up a long run because of him. But I still think Kyle Hamilton's a very good player. I think he was like 12th or 13th on my board, so the pick for me, the grade-wise, was a B+, because I think that he's in a system where they're going to know how to use him. I think he plays like a Raven. I think he's perfect for that, kind of Ed Reed style, like safety, that has kind of succeeded in Baltimore for many, many years. But I don't think he's as versatile as everybody wants to put him out to be. I think he still has a lot of work to do. And I think he's going to be in a more limited role than people actually think he's going to be. So we'll see how he progresses in Baltimore. And then they drafted Tyler Linderbaum. And I think for my first mock draft, I had Linderbaum going 7th to the Giants. So I'm not low on Linderbaum at all. I think he was my 11th player in this class, ahead of Kyle Hamilton. I just don't like the fit. Baltimore's a really power run scheme. They're not really that wide zone team where I thought Linderbaum fit the best. And frankly, Linderbaum is very small for his position. So in a power scheme, he's not going to succeed as much as he would in a wide zone scheme, because he's smaller and he's not as powerful as like a David Andrews or somebody like that who's a bigger center. He's very small for the position. I think he's like 6 foot, 285, 290. So I really felt like he needed to be in a wide zone scheme, like the New York Jets, like the San Francisco 49ers, like the Green Bay Packers, somewhere where they were going to play to his strengths. And it's not that I think this is a terrible landing spot, because Baltimore is a very good team at developing its offensive line, but I just didn't really see the point in taking him when, I felt like you could have went in other directions. Maybe interior defensive lineman at this point. I know they addressed it later in the draft, but I felt like there was more pressing needs. I know they needed interior offensive line, but if you were going to go with a center, I felt like it needed to be like a Luke Fortner, like later in the draft, because Fortner would have been the absolute perfect scheme fit here. And I'm not saying that Linderbaum's not going to work out. I just don't think that he's day one going to be the impact that we thought he was going to be, because I think he's going to need a big learning curve to get, worked up into the scheme. I think Iowa did a really good job of, yes, they were a power run scheme, but they knew how to hide his weaknesses very, very well. I don't know. I don't know if Baltimore is going to adapt to that, because they have a very good scheme running the football. They've been a really run-first team. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. I have that graded as a B, so these two picks are final graded as a B+. And then we go into the meat of their draft, which this is where they absolutely just hit it out of the park. We have David Ojabo in the second round. I was tempted to put him as a second round or as a first round pick in my mock draft 3.0 to them, but I had Travon Walker there. So Ojabo fits this like Ravens scheme perfectly. I mean, they have taken these super raw athletic guys coming out of college and just churned them out in Baltimore. I think he was high school teams with Odafe Owe, which makes this even more perfect. I think from a culture standpoint, Ojabo is going to get in there, and he's just going to go to work, man. I really think that this is the perfect spot for David Ojabo. I love this fit. I think he's going to be an absolute stud. And they kind of have the process down with Odafe Owe, and you saw flashes from Odafe Owe last year. I think the forced fumble against the Chiefs, and, you saw him kind of get, into the quarterback a little bit. I think they have the process down with Ojabo, and they're not going to need him to really rush his way back this season. They're going to be like, you can take your time, rehab. We want you to be healthy, for next season. And I think at some point he's going to come back and play this season, but, we'll kind of see how that goes. Then you have Travis Jones fall in your lap in the third round. This is absolutely crazy. I mean, wow. I could not believe Travis Jones fell this far, and there was Logan Hall and a couple other guys taking over him. I mean, this is A+ value. I thought you could have taken Travis Jones at the back end of the first round, kind of where Devontae Wyatt was taken by Green Bay, but for him to fall into the third round was ridiculous. I mean, Travis Jones is going to be that follow Runzu Fadukasi role where he's just going to come in there and he's just going to plug up the middle and just take dudes out in the run game, have Patrick Queen and LJ Fort and other guys come in and just have free lanes to, tackle the running backs. I mean, that's going to be Travis Jones' job. I do think he has somewhat of an upside as a pass rusher because he does play with some good power. Probably more of a pocket pusher type guy, but I really, really love Travis Jones. I think that he's going to be phenomenal in this system as well. And then they draft Daniel Faalele in the fourth round, just another absolute home run. Faalele is just a mountain of a man. I mean, he is 6'8", 350, and for him to move at that size is just absolutely ridiculous. And, Baltimore took Orlando Brown, I believe, in the third round, so they have a similar type player to kind of go off of. Now, granted, he's nowhere near as big as Faalele, but then again, no one is in the NFL. I mean, the guy that's most comparable to him is Trent Brown, so I think Faalele is in a perfect scheme to where they can really, work out his best strengths and then work on his weaknesses as well. I think foot speed's definitely going to be an issue, but this dude's going to be a mauler in the run game. I don't know if he's going to start right away, but if he does, I think he's, in the perfect system to be able to utilize him best. And then we have Jalen Armour-Davis, really good corner out of Alabama, super athletic, tested very, very well, really fit for that kind of bump and run scheme that the Ravens like to run. Really good in man coverage, has great ball skills. I think his press technique needs a little bit of work, But I think that, with Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey and some other guys, and you got that, Alabama connection with Humphrey there as well. I think he's going to have some good mentors here to be able to come in and play. And I don't necessarily think he has to play right away because I think Kyle Hamilton could play that nickel role too. So, Armour Davis is probably going to play, but not as much as you'd think right away. I think, he does need some time to develop, but I think he is a very good corner prospect. And then Charlie Kolar in the 4th round, like, are you kidding me, man? Like, just continuing this train of A-plus picks. I mean, Kolar, look, I saw him at Iowa State for the last 3-4 years. Charlie Kolar is not a blocker, and they don't really need him to be because they have Mark Andrews and they have Nick Boyle. They've been missing kind of that Hayden Hurst piece, and he can be that. And I think there's true comparison to him to Travis Kelce as a route runner, as a receiver. He's probably going to play on the outside too as well. Like, he's going to be your big slot, and he's going to play on the outside because I think Baltimore doesn't really need anybody at the receiver position to produce besides like Rashad Bateman. So I think Kolar is going to be very useful from day one as a receiver. I think he has Travis Kelce level upside as a receiver. Very, very good hands, doesn't drop a lot of passes. Leader, was a captain the last 2 years. So I think the Ravens are trying to get back to what they had when Lamar Jackson was an MVP, and that was more like 12 personnel, even 13 personnel. You could even go 14 personnel because you took Isaiah Likely later in the 4th round. So really going to be interesting to see how Baltimore utilizes all of these guys. They take Jordan Stout, a punter. They didn't really have other picks besides the 6th round pick, but you could have flip-flopped Tyler Beatty and Jordan Stout, and it would have been great. But take a punter there, which is fine. And you take Isaiah Likely, who's my tight end too, and I think Likely was more scheme dependent than anybody else, but I think that this is another really good landing for him because Baltimore's churned out tight ends, and they've had guys like, Hayden Hurst Likely in the past and Hayden Hurst. So I think Likely and Kolar are going to be in that similar role where they're not going to have to block a ton. I think Likely's a willing blocker. He's just really small, and Likely could even be a receiver for them, honestly, if he drops a little bit of weight, kind of back to his playing of 225 and really be a receiver for them, because I think that probably could benefit him in the long run. So kind of something to watch out for there. Likely's really explosive with the ball in his hands. I think he's, kind of somewhat similar to like a Noah Fant or Hayden Hurst or Albert Okwuegbunam, where, you get him vertical and you get the ball in his hands, and he's really going to, turn up for this team. And then Demarion Williams, who's fine. I thought he was like later day 3 guy, but kind of a physical corner, what they look for, in their corners. So, I don't hate the pick, but you could have gone with somebody else. Verone McKinley, somebody like that. And then Tyler Beatty out of Missouri. I think he's very similar to Tyson Williams, who I believe they just waived his tender on. They had some, free agent tender on him. So, I think Beatty is very good at running in between the tackles. I think he's going to be like what everybody thought Michael Carter was going to be last year, where he's more of like he can catch the football and do everything else, but he can certainly run in between the tackles more than Michael Carter could. So I think this is a really good pick for the Ravens, who have had injury concerns at running back. They had J.K. Dobbins, missed the entire season last year. They had Gus Edwards missed the entire season last year, and I believe Justice Hill missed the entire season last year. So you were down to like Tyson Williams, and they brought in Devontae Freeman and a couple of other guys. So I think Beatty gives them another guy in there just in case if anybody gets hurt like last season. So overall, this is probably if not the best draft I have ever seen in the last 5 years for a team. S grade for the Ravens. They absolutely killed this draft. It was crazy. They were just getting value after value after value after value down the board. The Ravens absolutely killed it. And whether it's been Ozzie Newsome or Eric DaCosta in that GM spot, they just continue to just hit, draft after draft after draft. So the Ravens continue to be one of the best drafting teams in the NFL. Then we have the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think I'm lower on this draft than a lot of people. And it's not that I don't like the guys they've taken. It's just, well, some of them I don't like, but I think it's really starting with the Daxton Hill pick. And I had this grade as a B+, and I think normally at this spot I would have had him as an A, but I'm just really worried about how Cincinnati's going to utilize Daxton Hill because he was utilized a lot of different ways at Michigan. He mostly played nickel. I don't think he's going to play nickel because I really like Mike Hilton. Mike Hilton's very good. So I think their one open spot in the secondary is outside corner, which would be fine, but I think it would not maximize kind of what Daxton Hill is very good at. But he certainly would be an upgrade over Eli Apple as that second outside corner opposite of Chidobe Awuzie. Because I don't think he's going to play over Jesse Bates, even though he's on the tag. Like, Jesse Bates is just a freaking stud. And then Von Bell, who I have been very high on over the last couple of seasons, played very well last year as well, was very key in that defense kind of, being better than we all expected it to be last season. So I think Hill is kind of in this weird spot where I don't know how much he's going to play as a rookie, unless if it's that outside corner, and then I think he'd play every snap, and that would be kind of a smart move. But then after that, it's like, where does he go? Does he become Jesse Bates' replacement? Because I don't think they're going to re-sign Jesse Bates. I think he's out of their price range, in my personal opinion. I think Jesse Bates wanted like 18 to 20 million, and they're like, here, take the franchise tag. I think he's playing on like 15 million if I'm not mistaken. So he could be that long-term Jesse Bates replacement, but year one is kind of the big question for me, is where he's going to play. And Cincinnati has not been great at developing their guys in the secondary, so I don't doubt Dax Hill. It's more of I doubt Cincinnati and how they're going to use him. Then we have Cam Taylor-Britt out of Nebraska. I just thought this was a big reach. I actually do like him as a player, but I thought he was an early day 3 guy. More of a round 4 or 5 guy. So it was definitely early for him. I think he's long, tall, strong, kind of the height, weight, speed guy. But I just don't like his technique very much. And especially in this kind of more zone scheme, I think he really needed to go to a man scheme like New England, like the Giants, somebody like that. I don't really see him fitting in this system. I think he's going to compete day one, certainly with Eli Apple and some of the other guys for reps, but do I really think he's going to play year one? No. So I was kind of questioning that pick, and then same with Zach Carter, who I thought was like a late day 3 guy to potentially prior to UDFA. I didn't really see with him. He's good against the run. Which I think they kind of need some more of those guys with DJ Reader kind of being in and out of the lineup with injury, but he doesn't offer you anything as a pass rusher, so it's very, especially with Perion Winfrey on the board, who I thought was a much better player. There was a couple other players on the board who I thought were much better players than Zach Carter, so I'm not really thrilled with this pick. And then Cordell Volson, again, not really thrilled with this pick. I thought he was slow. His footwork was bad. I thought his hand placement was good, and he had a good anchor, but his foot speed, his technique is not great. So, again, I feel like this is another, just backup offensive lineman for the time being, and maybe he develops into the starter. I'm not betting on it, but hey, it's whatever. And then Tyson Anderson, who I actually really liked. I think he's going to be, I don't know how much safety he's going to play, but he's certainly going to be a great special teamer for them, potential dime linebackers. So I liked that pick. Out of Toledo, I thought he was one of their better picks. And then Jeffrey Gunter, good athlete out of Coastal Carolina, good dart throw here late in the 7th round. I mean, that's pretty much a Mr. Irrelevant pick. So I like that. He's got some athletic upside, so maybe he sneaks into the roster. But I like their edge group. Joseph Osai is coming back off injury. I like Cam Sample, who they took last year as well. And then you got Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard. So maybe he sticks around there. Maybe he doesn't. We'll see kind of how that works out for Jeffrey Gunter. overall, it's a C minus for me. I think their middle picks just kind of ruin this, and I'm not really sold on them with Dax Hill just as a great fit, honestly. So, we'll kind of see how that works out. But again, I just need to see how they utilize Dax Hill maybe before I can really change that grade. I think that's more of like a TBD for me between a B and an A, because I thought Dax Hill was a top 15 player in this class. It's just, is Cincinnati going to utilize him right? That's my question mark. So then we have the Cleveland Browns. Yeah, this was an interesting draft for sure. So they trade back out of the second round. And with the guys that were on the board, especially a receiver, I was questioning this move because Pickens was on the board, Tyquan Thornton was on the board, and Sky Moore was on the board. And I was stunned that they didn't take any of those guys. But they trade back into round 3, and they take Martin Emerson, who I thought this was a round where he should have went. Good cornerback. I think he's physical, adds another body there. I think he's probably going to be their immediate dime guy with they have Greedy and Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome, so I think he's going to be their immediate dime corner. So he's going to play a lot. And a lot of people are like, oh, he's the dime corner, like, big deal. But dime is like 15, 20% of the defense, so that's probably, 200 to 300 snaps probably, depending on how much you're on defense. So he's going to play a good amount. And I think he's a good corner. I think he's got some, decent upside. So I like this pick. But the next 2 picks I hate. And Alex Wright, edge UAB, I thought was a massive reach. I don't think he's a great athlete. I think he's a decent run defender. So I think he could be an early down edge guy to start with. But I don't really see his upside as a pass rusher. I don't think he has the bend at all. I think his power isn't going to be as useful because he was playing at a lower level of competition. So I don't know how much that's going to translate. And honestly, I'm not a big believer in him. And I think he's going to be a immediate early down edge defender, but I don't have any upside for him as a pass rusher at all. I don't think he uses speed to power well. I don't think he's as powerful as he was at UAB because of the lower level competition. And I don't think he's hand usage is great either. So I wasn't a fan of that pick. And then David Bell, who I've seen a lot of people are raving about this pick. I'm not a big David Bell fan. And I think it showed at the combine. He's slow. He's a good route runner. I'll give you that. But when you're slow and you don't have explosiveness at the receiver position, it's very, very hard to be successful. I think the only real guy that was like 4'6" below that was that size and was really successful was Jarvis Landry. And I think he was in a scheme in Miami that really utilized him properly. And if they want David Bell to be their number 2 guy, I think it's a mistake. I think Peoples-Jones would have a better, opportunity to be their wide receiver 2 than David Bell. So I did not like this pick. I just don't view Bell as like a starting caliber wide receiver at the next level. So we'll see if he proves me wrong, but the combine told me otherwise. Perion Winfrey, I absolutely love this pick at the top of the 4th round. I think it gives Cleveland more pass rush on the interior, which they have not had over the last couple of seasons. He's a miserable run defender. I think he needs to bulk up and really get better at getting off blocks and stuff. But he is a really good speed interior rusher. I think he's a really good first step. Utilizes his hands properly. So I really think that's a great pick. And then why are you taking a kicker in the 4th round? I get you have kicking woes, but 7th round, 6th round, take a kicker. Don't take him in the 4th round where you have somewhat of a valuable pick. Just a dumb pick. Then Jerome Ford, great pick in my opinion. I had him as my running back 6, so I think it was a 4th round grade for him. I have him as a B+ here. Only reason it's not more of an A or stuff like that is because they obviously have 3 guys in front of him in Dearness Johnson, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb. And I think it was smart for Cleveland to take a running back. a lot of people are going to be like, Cleveland fans are going to be like, why do we take a running back? We have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and Dearness Johnson. Well, Dearness Johnson's playing on a tender, so he's gone after next season. And Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb have both been injury prone, so you needed another guy to carry the load if those guys get hurt, which Nick Chubb, I believe, has been hurt the last 2 seasons, and Kareem Hunt missed most of the end of last season. So Jerome Ford really fits their scheme very well. He's a powerful runner. I think he's faster than people give him credit for, and better receiver than people give him credit for, kind of like Najee Harris last season. So I really liked that pick. Jerome Ford was higher on my board than a lot of other guys, so great pick there by Cleveland. And then Mike Woods, like, just continuing with the slow receivers, I don't see anything out of Mike Woods, really. I did not think he was a draftable player. With Kevin Austin on the board, with Bo Melton on the board, with Justin Ross on the board, like, could have taken any of those 3 of those guys, and it would have been a way better pick than this, especially since I had Kevin Austin Jr. as like a 4th, 5th round guy. Oh, man, I don't understand this pick at all. I mean, Mike Woods is slow, not a great route runner. I don't know. I think the guy that they had undrafted from Northern Iowa would have been a better pick in this spot than Mike Woods, to be honest. Then Isaiah Thomas from Oklahoma. I think he's got good bend, good speed rusher. I think gives him another body in there at the edge position, which they have lacked depth at. I think he's got upside for sure because of that bend and speed that he has off the edge. He just doesn't really translate that into power, which I think, Myles Garrett can teach him and some of the other guys that are there as well. But I do think this is a good pick. Good dart throw late on an edge guy that has some bend, some speed, so I thought it was a good pick. And then Dawson Deaton, really experienced center out of Texas Tech, your potential J.C. Treader replacement. Not great for this like power run scheme, but obviously he's got that great pass blocking technique, with Texas Tech being one of the more pass heavy offenses in college football. So overall, I think this is a C- for Cleveland. Alex Wright, David Bell, and the kicker, and Mike Woods, it's just like, come on, man. Like, there were much better players on the board. I love the Perion Winfrey pick, liked the Jerome Ford pick, liked their 2 7s and Martin Emerson, but I really think that Alex Wright, David Bell were just garbage picks, in my opinion. Then we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we started off with Kenny Pickett, and I've kind of come back on this one. I'm still going to keep it a C-, but I kind of understand more of Pittsburgh's philosophy of taking Kenny Pickett instead of like a Malik Willis, instead of some of those other guys. I think it's because their window to win is right now, and they don't need a guy that's got a lead upside and going to make mistakes right away. They need just a field general that can just run the offense and just get the ball into the hands of playmakers. And that's what Pickett is. Pickett's a Jimmy Garoppolo, Teddy Bridgewater type quarterback. And I think that, if Pickett can just run the offense the way it's supposed to be run, I think Pittsburgh's got a chance to win this season. But you're playing in one of the most competitive divisions I've ever seen, let alone conferences I've ever seen. So, I'm not the biggest Pickett fan, but I think this was probably his best spot, day one. Even though I kept having them take Malik Willis, I think it's Pickett's best spot. I still have it as a C- because I think you passed up upside at the quarterback position to potentially win now. And in a couple years, if they end up winning a Super Bowl, that grade could change, but we'll see. Then they steal George Pickens in the second round. He fell due to off-the-field issues. I kind of alluded to it last video with the New England Patriots, where this was going to remind Bill Belichick of Randy Moss, and I think that's a very good comparison because Pickens has all the talent in the world, but he interviewed horribly, so we'll see what happens. I love George Pickens. I think he's a phenomenal player, but can he keep his act together? We've seen it in the past with talented guys, and they haven't been able to keep their act together, so we'll see if George Pickens can stay on the field because he's got all the talent in the world. DeMarvin Leal, I was kind of out on DeMarvin Leal, but I think this scheme definitely fits his play style. I think he's similar to a Stephon Tuitt, going to be a really nice run defender day one. and, going to develop as a pass rusher behind Tuitt, behind Cam Hayward. I think he's kind of that hybrid mold where he could play either or, interior or on the edge. But I think Pittsburgh, it adds a guy that has good upside in a weaker interior defensive line class with Stephon Tuitt getting older and having been hurt a lot recently. And Cam Hayward, even though he's still as good as ever, has been hurt or is getting older as well. So I like DeMarvin Leal. I think he plays with good power. He's good against the run. So I thought that was a great pick for Pittsburgh. Just thought it was a little early. Is all. That's why it's B-. Calvin Austin, A grade. I thought he was a second or third round player. Brings them a speed element over the top that they lost in James Washington, who went to Dallas. So I think he's that immediate replacement, that wide receiver 4. So I really, really like that pick. It gives them an opportunity to take the top off the defense and a gadget guy where they can get the ball in his hands, scheme him up touches, that sort of thing. And then Connor Hayward, who I really, really loved at the Combine, was one of my guys coming out of the Combine. He just looked fluid. I mean, he was a fullback, but he looked like a legitimate tight end. So I think he can play some fullback, some H-back, some, inline tight end, some slot. I mean, I think he's a versatile piece, but you're going to piss off one of your top edge rushers in Cam Hayward or TJ Watt, because Derek Watt's the other fullback there. So you're going to make one of them mad by cutting the other one. But I really think Connor Hayward is just, he's a Steeler through and through. I think he's just the epitome of like hard work, grit, stuff like that. So I really like Connor Hayward here. I think he's a very good fit, even if he's not on the roster day one. Mark Robinson's a decent linebacker prospect, good special teamer nonetheless. And then Chris Olave, I mean, I didn't see him as a draftable quarterback prospect, so we'll kind of see how that goes. I think he's just going to be a practice squad stash or something like that. But overall, a B- grade. I love the George Pickens, Calvin Austin picks. Wasn't as high on the DeMarvin Leal and Kenny Pickett picks, but overall, a decent draft here for Pittsburgh. I think that they got their guy that they think is going to win them games next season, and they added 2 more weapons for him, and they already have 2 in Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson. So very good receiver room. So that's going to be it for my AFC North draft grades. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for AFC South and AFC West coming later this week, and I will have a schedule kind of reaction breakdown on Thursday as well. So I'll probably have a double upload. So I'm looking forward to that coming up tomorrow. Schedule release is going to be good. I'm going to see what games I'm going to go to, stuff like that. I think I'm already going to 2, trying to get to a 3rd one, so we'll see how that all goes. But thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a great day, and peace.